Okay, so without any further ado, I want to go ahead and welcome our next speaker, Rachel Druckenmiller. Rachel is a terrific speaker, and I just went up to her and I said, Rachel, I forgot to bring any information for your bio. What do you want to give me? She said, David, I'll talk. They'll decide whether or not I'm a good speaker. Those of you who had the opportunity to see Rachel talk last year, I think know that you're in for a tremendous treat. She's a nationally recognized writer, speaker, author on the topic of well-being. We used to say wellness, today it's well-being. And she's got a wonderful message that I had the opportunity to hear her talk to a group in Denver a few weeks ago. So you're in for a real treat. Please welcome Rachel Druckenmiller.
Ping pong tables, kegs in the kitchen, and rock climbing walls. If you were to look at the media, you would think that these are the things that we need to do to bring to our organizations in order to attract and retain talent, yes? That we have to be a cool company in order to make that happen. We might even need to have a slide in the middle of our office. Does anyone have a slide out of curiosity? Never actually met anyone that does, but it seems like kind of a cool concept. This idea that if we bring all of these cool things to people, that will make a difference. And when we do that, what we're focusing on is we're focusing on climate, something that's on the surface instead of culture. So let's kind of break this down. I want you to think of going to a location like this, a beautiful location like this, and you see the mountains, and you see the rivers, and the river beds, and you see the trees. All the things that you see on the surface, like the perks and the policies and the programs, that is called climate. So this would even include things like standing desks and apples in the kitchen and plants in the office, all of which are great. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. And it's important to have organizations where we have a strong climate. But have you ever met someone who worked for a company that had a very cool climate, but the culture was terrible? Anyone ever known someone like that? They're like, on Facebook, it looks like you're having a blast, but everyone's miserable. So what we really want to do, if we want to have an impact, is we want to focus on three other things. We want to focus on the underlying current of values, beliefs, and experiences that shape an organization, and that is what culture is. So what are the things that define who you are? What are the things that direct the decisions that you make? What are the things that inform how you hire people? Like, these are the things that actually matter. Both of these are important. But I would rather you focus on having a strong culture and letting climate catch up later. We know that the way we're currently approaching things is not working. We know that 2/3 of the workforce feel like this on most days. Pretty disengaged and checked out. To add to that, we know that workplace stress is actually the 5th leading cause of death in this country. This is according to a Stanford professor named Jeffrey Pfeffer. He wrote a fantastic book called Dying for a Paycheck. If you really want to have your leaders get some really insightful and compelling data around what work is doing to people, Dying for a Paycheck is a book I'd recommend. And so they found that all of these deaths, 120,000 deaths a year, are due to things like work-family conflict and lack of autonomy and lack of control, lack of access to health insurance, and excessive work hours. So we should not be surprised that many people leave work feeling a bit like this. Right? It's like, freedom, 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 oh, freedom. Anybody feel like that ever? You like walk out and you're like, yes, I am free. This is how a lot of people feel at work. So we've got to change how we're doing things. We know that the war on talent is heating up. And so if we're going to really attract and retain and engage top talent, we've got to do something differently. And the organizations that are winning the war on talent are doing several things differently, but one in particular is that they recognize that culture is the secret sauce. That great cultures attract great employees and great clients and great customers. Just to give you guys a little backstory, I almost wasn't able to make it today. I had a flight issue several weeks ago where I had pressure build up on my ear on landing. Anyone ever had that happen before? Your ear gets blocked and it's like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're talking in a cave. So I said to the team last week, I said, you know what? I can't fly. I'm not allowed to fly. Like, my eardrum could rupture. And they care so much about you guys that they were like, we're going to find a way to get you there. So I was driven 11 hours from Baltimore yesterday to get here to be with you guys today because the team was like, we are going to pull in like everybody and everything we can to make sure that this happens. So that's an example of a culture that cares, right? Like they're like, we're not going to miss this opportunity. I want you to think about your organization as it stands right now. What are 3 to 5 words that describe your current culture? Now, I want you to be honest, because you're not going to like raise your hand and be like, Rachel, my culture sucks. Like most people won't voluntarily offer that up, I recognize, especially if you're here with someone you work with. But be honest with yourself and jot down what are 3 to 5 words that describe your current culture as it stands right now. We're going to come back to this list at the end of the session, so keep it in a place where you can come back to it. The thing I want to mention too is that depending on different changes happening in your organization, there may be periods of time where things are really great, and at the same exact company, 6 months later, something shifts, and then things are not so great. So in any given organization, you could have a variety of different words that you use within a certain range of time, just because of things that can happen. Turnover, changes in leadership, changes in society, all those different things can affect it. So something to consider. Keep that list at hand, and again, we will come back to that. The thing I want you to recognize is this, as we talk about this today, is that your culture happens by design or by default. If you do not intentionally shape and design and build your culture, you will end up with something that you may not like. So we have to be intentional about this. Again, this is the thing. This is the secret sauce that gets people to want to stick around and to tell people about working for you. It's when they have a sense that, wow, they are really doing the work to intentionally design the experience here as an employee. The employee experience is important. So let's take a look at what is the impact of a great culture. I want you to think about a day in your life when this was true, when you left work. Maybe during open enrollment, I don't know, could be any number of things. When you have a moment where you're like, man, today just sucked. Anyone had a day like that? Where you left work and you're like, today was terrible, I wish it was over. Yeah, and then you're like, Netflix and red wine, right? That's pretty standard. Yeah. So what happens is when we have days like that, when we have a bad day, I'm going to venture to guess that you don't go home and you're like the sweetest spouse ever, or you're like the most patient parent, or that you're even nice to the person who checks you out at Target. Like when you have a bad day, you're like, everyone needs to know that I am having a bad day. You ever feel that way? You're like, I have to make sure that other people see that I'm miserable. Just go on social media. You can find very quickly the people that feel that way on a daily basis, and it's like, gosh, you're exhausting. But truly, it has a ripple effect. A negative workplace culture has a ripple effect on every area of our lives. It affects our emotional and mental health. It affects our relationships. It affects our physical health. It affects our financial health. We have to care about this because people spend the vast majority of their waking hours at work or on work. The way we treat people in our care affects the way they go home and treat people in their care. So this is not just a work issue. This is a societal issue. This affects families. We know that when we're really stressed at work, when work is really taxing us, and we come home and we're not available and we're not present and we're combative, that affects marriages. Negative workplace cultures can lead to all sorts of negative issues in our culture. So we have to recognize this is a significant responsibility for us as employers to really be people who care about the people that we employ. Employees expect you to care. They expect you to care about them as a whole person. We can't just get by on giving people a paycheck anymore. We know that. It has to be so much more than that. They expect you to care about their physical well-being. They expect you to give them free apples and yoga mats and that kind of stuff sometimes, right? Depending on where you are. They expect you to care about their financial well-being, depending on what stage they're in. So if they're like a boomer that's ready to retire, they want to have options for things that they can do to make sure that that's a smooth transition. And if they're right out of college and have $150,000 in debt, which is not terribly uncommon, they want to know that you're going to have things in place to help them manage that and pay that off faster. They want to know that you care about their career well-being, their learning and growth and development opportunities. They want to feel like they work for an organization that has a future and where they have a clear path for where they can go. They want to know that you care about their emotional health and well-being. Mental health is a significant issue. Is it not? In our organizations, anxiety, depression, suicides, all of these things are affecting organizations everywhere. So we have to have an increased focus on emotional well-being. Community well-being. This is, I give my employees opportunities to come together and to be of service to other people, to make an impact. These are the things that people want to be a part of. And social well-being is the opportunities to have fun. Yeah, have a happy hour. It's okay. Give people the opportunity to just be off together. That's very important too. So people expect you, they're going to favor employers that give them a lot of these things as opposed to just one. So I want you to think about it, your own organization. We went into this in great detail last year. What are the specific things that you're doing across these different dimensions of well-being to support your people? There was a study done, or multiple studies done, by an organization called Quantum Workplace. They are the back engine of the Best Place to Work surveys. Anyone here been recognized as a top workplace? Keep your hands high. Wow, look around the room. Just real quick, look around the room. So talk to these people. On the break, if you're curious, be like, well, you know something, because you guys want to know work. Congratulations. And so Quantum Workplace is, again, the back engine of that, and they have a database of 600,000 employees that have responded to this survey that they've done. So that's a lot of people. And what they found is that there are 5 key drivers of employee engagement. My job allows me to utilize my strengths. I'm able to do what I'm good at work. We'll come back to this and why that's important. I trust the senior leadership team to lead the company to future success. I believe in the people that are running the show. I believe this organization will be successful in the future. If I stick around, I'm going to be rewarded for it, basically. I'm going to have increasing opportunities here. The leaders of the organization value people as their most important resource. Now, we know without profits, it's great to have if we're just nice to people all the time, we're not generating any revenue, that's a problem. But organizations that are truly engaging people are making sure that their people feel like their most important resource. And last but not least, if I contribute to the organization's success, I know I will be recognized. People want to be valued and appreciated. And again, we'll come back to this. And this is one of the top reasons, by the way, why people are leaving organizations. There was a study done by an organization called the Saratoga Institute that included 19,000 people. And they were asking, what are the key reasons that you are leaving your job? It's a third-party exit interview company. 89% of managers said people are leaving for money. You all know it. Yeah, everyone's leaving for money. 88% of employees said, I am leaving for reasons other than money. So we know that this recognition thing is very, very, very important. Now, if we were to boil down this even further to what are the 3 main things employees really want the most out of work? We have data from Facebook. They survey their employees, tens of thousands of employees, several times a year, and what they narrowed it down to are these 3 things that people want. They want to be part of an organization that stands for something, that they feel like they're aligning with a cause. They want to be part of an organization that gives them a sense of connection, belonging, and community. And they want to be part of an organization that supports their career growth so that they can be developed and that they can learn and they can advance. When employees, this is kind of the unwritten contract, that when employees have these things, they're less likely to leave. So these are the things that matter. We're going to dig into each one of these. And we're going to start with community. Community being the most significant. What I'm going to ask you to do is to buddy, when I say go, so I'm going to give you the instructions, then I have you do it, okay? So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you buddy up with one other person. One of you is going to take out your cell phone. One of you, okay? And then what you're going to do is the person who does not have the cell phone is going to start talking, and I'll give you 30 seconds to share about someone who's had a significant impact on your life. You're just going to talk about that person for 30 seconds. And the person holding the cell phone, you are going to be the worst listener ever. You're going to be like scrolling through LinkedIn, checking all the emails you're missing while you're being here, and you're not going to give this person the time of day. You're going to feel like you're being really mean, and you're going to want to not listen to my instructions. But I encourage you to just stay. It's only 30 seconds. It's going to feel like forever, but it's only 30 seconds. Okay? Instructions make sense. I'll give you 5 seconds to find your buddy, and then I'll have you go. Begin. Okay, and stop. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Wow, that was like the quickest ever. You guys are awesome. So, was that, shout out some words. What was that like for you? Awkward. Is anyone like, I have a teenager and that was totally normal? Like, welcome to my life every day. Yeah, okay. Used to just talking to myself. What else? Other people that were talking. Did anybody stop talking? It's okay, I'm not going to throw anything at you. Yeah. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable, isn't it? But that's like so often what most of our days look like. If we were to have someone, honestly, kind of like hidden camera sneak move us, most of us would be caught doing something like that at some point during the day. We would be. And so the challenge is we are more digitally connected than we have ever been. But we are more intimately disconnected than we have ever been. And this is a significant issue in our society, in our workplaces, in our friendships, and in our families. And I want to say one other thing. You're going to see some new slides come in. Sometimes I get inspiration at the last minute. We will send you the updated deck. So don't be married to the deck. Just try to be present. I know it's like, I want to take really good notes. You'll get everything. So just like be present and be here, okay? One of the reasons why this is such an issue in the workplace, and one of the drivers of employee disengagement, is anonymity. There are so many people in the workplace that do not feel seen, they do not feel heard, they do not feel known, and they do not feel accepted. And so they act out. It's like the 5-year-old tugging on your leg. They're like, mommy, 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 mommy. You're like, what? They're like, okay. So that's how I do it. Think of your employees who are like a total pain in the butt. They're like a 5-year-old, like tugging on your leg. They just want someone to notice them. That's what they want. And that's what connection and belonging are about. We have background music, that's fun. So that's what connection and belonging are about, right? Is removing this idea of anonymity. People want to feel like someone cares about them and who they are, not just about what they do. We know that loneliness has become a rampant issue in our culture. There's an epidemic of loneliness. This affects men and women, men more than women. And it has a generational impact as well. Gen Z and millennials feel lonely at work more than Gen X and boomers do. But it's affecting every generation. So we have to recognize what is our role in that as human resource professionals to focus on this issue that is affecting so many people in the workplace. We crave connection. We want to feel like we belong to something. We want to feel like we're a part of something, and if we do, we will perform at a high level. We will go the extra mile. We will show up fully when we feel connected. So I'm going to have you do an activity now, another activity that you won't feel so awkward doing. And it's called the Inside Scoop. And it was started by the U.S. Surgeon General's office several years ago as a way to combat loneliness in the workplace. And so here's how it works. This is something, by the way, that is free, so it doesn't cost you any money, which is always nice, right? We're always like, what can I do for free? That's easy. This, okay? So you can take this and use it at the beginning of like a department meeting. You could do this at the beginning of an all-employee meeting. It's an opportunity to bring people together and to just kind of have a conversation. So here's how it works. You're going to match up with one other person. You're both going to get the opportunity to talk. You're going to both take out your cell phones, and I'm going to give you 1 minute each. And after a minute, I'm going to say switch, 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 because you'll just love the person you're talking to so much that you won't want to stop talking. So I can say it 3 times so you hear me. When I say that, you're going to switch, and then the other person's going to share. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through pictures on your cell phone, either one picture, multiple pictures. You're going to just tell that person something about yourself, something that's important to you, someone that's important to you. If you had 1 minute to kind of share a little bit about who you are through pictures on your phone, and the reason we're doing pictures is because after a 3-day period, people are only about 10% likely to remember words. They're 60% likely to remember pictures that they saw, visual images, which is why most of my slides have very few words on them. They're mostly images. Does that instruction, I think that makes sense? So what you're going to do, I'm going to say, go, and again, I'll give you 5 to 10 seconds to kind of like get acclimated, and then you're going to match up with a buddy, and one of you is going to start through sharing pictures, something about yourself. Begin. Did anybody find that you have something in common with the person that you talk to? Raise your hand if you found you had something common. Wow. Is anybody like dying, you like, I want to share this story about my person. Does anybody have something that you want to like share, something you found out about them that you would like the room to know? Yes. Your person's right there, awesome. Oh yeah, I should have told you that, by the way. Uh-huh.
And she's very creative. She has 2 sisters. Everybody else has blonde hair and blue eyes, and she doesn't. So she believes that she's related, but very creative. She does it with her best friend, her bridal shower, and she did all the decorations and favors and everything. Awesome work. I just told her I was going to have a 50th birthday for like next year, and I'm going to exchange it for next year, so she knows that.
All right, look at that. Let's give a round of applause. What a fantastic memory. And you got all that in 90 seconds. We don't know that much stuff about the people we sit next to for 5 years sometimes, right? Amazing, and it takes listening. When you're attentively listening to someone, we catch things, even in a crowded, noisy room. So kudos to you guys for that connection. Let's give them a round of applause. I mean, like, again, because that was really fantastic. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And you got business, so that's cool. Anybody else who wants to share, like, something that you found out about the person that you talked to? Did you all talk to boring people? One other person? Yes. Hi there. A boxer. You want to show us some moves?
Can she
Dory
wait
was
till...
a boxer. Yeah,
get
sure.
the microphone over.
Yep. So Dory the boxer, yeah.
Who is giving?
Dory's right here. Yeah. Kim, Dory, yeah.
So I found out that Dory likes to box, and she just did a boxing match, right?
Wow. So, like, don't mess with you, or, like, have you on our team.
Yeah, and Kimberly also likes to work out, and she likes to do, like, these workout drumming classes.
Get out of here. Where do you do that?
It's in the Beverly area. It's a place called The Lab. So every Monday night I'm doing cardio drumming. It's a lot of fun.
The Lab. Has anybody else here done cardio drumming? Does anybody else here want to do cardio drumming?
Sounds so much fun.
Like activity, group activity. That sounds like such a cool idea. So a round of applause for these two. Awesome job. Yeah. Do you see it's not that hard? We just don't do it. It's not that hard. It doesn't cost any money, and it takes less time than if you have to, like, go to the bathroom. And we just don't do it. I want you to go into your workplace with fresh eyes the next time you walk into work. And ask yourself, how can I see people differently? How can I notice people? People just want to be noticed. Sometimes your most difficult employees, I want you to think, can you all think of somebody in your organization who's difficult? No names. Yeah? You're like, if that person would just leave tomorrow, I'd be happy. Yeah? So, we have people like that. I'm going to challenge you that sometimes the most difficult people are the people who don't feel seen and heard and accepted and acknowledged. We have no idea where people are coming from. And so this is why we offer them grace. Do you know that when we get to know someone as a human being and not just what they do at work, that when they screw up, we have more grace and we have more compassion and we're more easily able to forgive them because we see them as a human being, not just as a role. It's this idea of seeing the soul behind the role. That's what we want to get at. Seeing people for who they really are, not just for what they have to show up and pretend to be at work. The reason why little things like this matter is because connection and time together build trust. And if you want to have an organization where people trust each other, where they trust you, this is a way I know. I've been working with HR professionals for 12 years. And one of the challenges I hear over and over again is like, well, you know, people can't really get to know me. I can't really open up about certain things. I kind of have to keep certain things guarded because I'm in HR. Yes, and any one of you could do that activity with somebody you work with and not overshare. It's an opportunity for you to connect in a very easy way, in a very authentic and natural and organic way with people. And the reason why all of this stuff matters is because it's hard to trust people we don't know. We have to get to know the people that we are working with if we are going to trust them. So these connection things matter. There's so many different ways that you can do this. One of the things you can try, even though I was just like, use your cell phones. Now here's on the flip side of that, is to have things like phone-free lunches and phone-free meetings. There was a study done several years ago that found that the mere presence of a cell phone stifled interpersonal closeness and trust. And it actually reduced our ability to be empathetic toward another person. The mere presence of a cell phone. Even if the person's not on it. We've all been in meetings where we're sitting across from somebody and both people have their phone right in the middle. Yes? That's like pretty common occurrence. Because I might miss a call. Okay, so unless you're like closing the hole in the ozone layer or curing cancer, like if you're not at your phone for an hour, like people can deal. We treat people how to treat. We teach people how to treat us, right? And so if the expectation is, I'm available all the time, I'm available, even in the bathroom, I'm available for you all the time. You need to be available. You need to have a little bit of boundaries in your life too, because you will burn yourself out. So we have to focus on what we can do to create connection when we have these moments to connect with people, that we put the devices away. This includes Apple Watches. Anyone been in a meeting with somebody? Oh, I'm paying attention. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you're looking at your wrist every 10 seconds, you're not paying attention. Take the watch off and wait until the meeting's over and have the human-to-human interaction. Do that. You will be different. This will be hard to do this. It is very hard to be people that are bucking up against the trend of constantly having device out all the time. But you will connect more deeply and more meaningfully with people in terms of friendships, in terms of the people that you live with, in terms of your coworkers, if you can learn to put the device away when you are having a conversation or a meeting with somebody. Chick-fil-A has these little things, these little cell phone coop boxes. Has anyone had this happen at, like, you go to Chick-fil-A? They have these boxes you can get where, like, you walk in with your family, and then you, like, all put your phones in the box, and you, like, talk to each other. It's like, anyone been to an airport recently where, like, nobody is talking to each other? Everyone is staring down at their, like, what's so interesting? Probably nothing. But we're so, like, terrified of actually being seen that we're not willing to connect with people. This room, people hearing things like this message, have to be the people that are being that change and leading the way to do that. We have to be the ones to do it. So one of the other things that we can do is to focus on initiatives that bring people together. So you could form a culture club where you have internal ambassadors that focus on these 3 different areas. So we have a social committee, community service committee, and a wellness committee. And they all plan different events. They plan their own independent events. They plan joint events. So we love, anybody like your company loves, like people love food? Like people are so, everyone's busy. And then it's like donuts in the lounge. They're like, well, I can take a minute. Like everyone's suddenly not busy when there's food or happy hour. The things we don't have to incentivize. I will give you $10 to come and drink wine and eat sliders for an hour. We don't have to incentivize these things because people want to do them. So potlucks are a great way to bring people together. We started doing breakfast potlucks. Oh my gosh, people love breakfast food. We actually have like a pajama day where people wear their pajamas and then we have breakfast and we exchange mugs with each other like a Secret Santa type thing. Super fun. We do that in December. You do things like a chili cook-off, salad potluck. Taco Tuesday is always a hit. You have everybody sign up to bring in an ingredient. These things are not that difficult. We like sometimes overcomplicate. What's the next cool thing I have to do? Bring people together over food. That creates a sense of community. Anyone done one of these? Paint night? Yeah, so maybe you're gonna lead one with all your creativity. Like, but having like a paint night where people come together and they just learn how to paint something pretty that maybe they hang in their office or at their house. Giving back together. So this is a way to combine multiple aspects of well-being. Because when we do things that are give-back initiatives, that's like financial well-being and it's community well-being. And if you're like biking or running or doing some other type of activity, it's physical well-being and it's team building. So we're actually going to send you as a follow-up to this session, you guys are going to get an email that has several articles in it, one of which is one that I wrote about community well-being specifically, and over a dozen really cool ideas for things that you could consider doing at your company. So you're going to get that as a follow-up to the session. If you want to use technology, and I mentioned this last year, but we just did it again. We used it again. It's an app called Scavify. It's a virtual scavenger hunt. And it is so much fun. It's so much fun. So you enter clues in there. You have to take pictures of your team doing dumb things. You have to like answer trivia questions. So we have all of our employees submit through SurveyMonkey the answer to a trivia question about themselves. And then it's a really cool way to get to know each other. We went to the zoo this year, so we like ran around the zoo, taking pictures of like polar bears, and it was so fun. It was a Friday afternoon, and it's one of our most popular events in the entire year. So the app again is called Scavify. I will send you'll be getting the contact information from my contact there, so you can reach out to him directly to kind of learn more about this. When it comes to community, here's what I want you to leave with. Employees leave companies. They don't leave communities. Employees leave companies. They don't leave communities. Think about it. If you ever worked in an organization where you had a friend, anyone ever worked at a company where you had a friend? You had somebody you liked to see. Can you be a little loose, the definition of friend? Somebody you liked to see. It's harder to leave that kind of an organization than to leave a company where you're just showing up and you're just doing your job and you're getting paid and you secretly wish you were anywhere else. When we're at jobs like that, we're like, get me out of here. You're at a company when you're at that job. You're not part of a community. So what are you doing to intentionally focus on building this? I'm going to give you 3 take-home questions. I'm going to challenge you to have a discussion with your team about, have a discussion with your leaders about. What does your organization do to foster opportunities to connect and come together? What does your company do to create a sense of belonging? Because that is what people want. More than anything else, we want acceptance, belonging, and love. That's what everybody wants. We don't typically use those words at work, but that's what everybody wants. So we have to focus on making our organizations places where this is possible. The second is career. So career is about I have opportunities to learn and to grow and to be developed. Remember those top 5 drivers of engagement? It's like, I believe that I have a future here. People want to say, like, I see myself sticking around here because I think my growth is going to be supported and I think I'm going to be developed and mentored and poured into. Employees have to know that this is going to happen if they're going to stick around. I love this quote from Richard Branson. Train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. Right? Train them well enough so they could leave, but you treat them so well that they wouldn't even think of it. People want to be developed, coached, and mentored. They do not want to be managed. Most people really don't want to be managed. Most adults would like to live autonomously. It's like one of the things we want more than anything is to be self-directed, right? And to make our own decisions and decide how we're spending our time. People don't necessarily want to be managed. Now, we have a management crisis going on right now. According to Gallup, they say that only about 10% of managers have any business managing. Can anyone attest to that at your organization? Like, yeah, we got a lot in like the 90% that should not be managing people. And this is a problem because managers account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement scores. 70%. So if you have people that are disengaged and checked out, we're not blaming managers. We have to train them better. We're not doing a very good job of developing our people leaders. But we have to recognize like how significant their role is and whether or not people leave or whether they stay. Managers are absolutely crucial for this. So one of the things that I would encourage you to consider is to focus just as much, if not more, on honing the people skills as much as the technical skills. What's going to differentiate leaders in the future who really stand out and who lead the highest performing teams are leaders who can create a sense of psychological safety, where people are encouraged to share their ideas and to make mistakes and not get totally burned for it, where people can express what they think, and where people can agree to disagree and it's okay. That's where innovation happens. Innovation does not happen when everybody thinks the same. So if we want to have leaders who are going to lead effectively, then we want to teach them human skills. Things like empathy, things like connection, things like how do we create this safety. I've been doing lots of trainings on beating burnout because that has become a rampant issue in our culture, is burnout. There was a study done of over 50,000 managers that was looking at different variables that affect leadership effectiveness. And they found that a leader's overall effectiveness was predicted more by warmth than by competence. This was the most important thing, was warmth. Now, a warm leader is somebody who is present. It's someone who is available. It's someone who listens to you. It's someone who recognizes and acknowledges you. It's someone who smiles at you and asks how you're doing and remembers your kids' names or remembers your dog's name. What I want you to do is I want you to jot down the name of somebody that those descriptors bring to mind for you. If you have had a leader like that in your life, that has been a warm leader, I want you to write their name down, and I would encourage you to either send them an email, send them a text message, send them a note, just to thank them for being that kind of leader, because those kind of leaders are very rare. And so we want to start focusing on acknowledging these things that we want to see more of in people. And if you haven't had a leader like that, I want to give you hope that there are people like that out there, and that you can be a leader like that. You can be somebody who is a warm leader. This affects, these variables of warmth and competence are important at every level of management and leadership, but they are most important in top management and senior management. Warmth is more important than competence. We need to have competent leaders. Like, we hope, this is, debatable. So it's like, is this person have any idea what they're doing? That's important. But at the highest level of leadership, it's actually more important that they are warm, that they have these human skills down. Now, you'll notice as we get down to the middle management and supervisory level, it switches, right? And competence is more important. But warmth still accounts for 30 to 40% of leadership effectiveness. So it's one thing to have competent managers. It's another thing to have competent managers who are also warm. So the ideal situation is somebody who is warm and competent. And we know that people who are not warm, leaders who are ranked as low warmth, have a 1 in 2,000 chance of making the top level of leadership effectiveness. Low warmth leaders, 1 in 2,000 chance of making that top level of leadership. Now, we know that one of the aspects of warmth is, again, recognizing and acknowledging and valuing people. And one of the ways that we do that is by focusing on what people do well. Remember, the #1 driver of employee engagement was I'm able to utilize my strengths? That is the #1 driver of engagement, is people feel like they're able to do what they're good at work. So when someone's manager focuses on their strengths, pour into what they do well, there is a 1% chance that that manager's employees will be actively disengaged. And people who are actively disengaged are checked out and they want to make sure everybody knows it. Do you know people like this? They're like the drop of poison in the water. So when we focus on strengths, right, people are very unlikely to have that happen. They're more likely to be highly engaged. If a manager focuses on your weaknesses, there's a 22% chance that you will be actively disengaged. 22%. It's higher. What do you think is worse than someone focusing on your weaknesses? Say it. Being ignored. Yes, that is the worst thing, is to be ignored. Remember when we talked about anonymity and community? Anonymity is one of the key drivers of employee disengagement. I don't feel seen. And these people are twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression in the next 12 months. This is an issue. This is a crisis in leadership, that we have people that are not necessarily leading with strengths. So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to complete, who here has taken the Strengths Finder assessment? Raise your hand high if you've taken it. Look around the room, so quite a few folks have taken it. Do this for yourself. Don't even do it for your job. Like, do it just to know. I had my husband take it. I'm super nerdy and love psychometric assessments and have taken a dozen of them because I think they're super fun. My husband really doesn't care about stuff like this. He's an elementary school phys ed teacher. He's like, I just want to show up and do my job. I don't necessarily care about this. And so I had him take it. And interestingly, my #1 strength, his #1 strength was my number 34 strength. There's only 34. And it's harmony, which as an elementary school phys ed teacher, you need a lot of that. And I'm like, it's okay if people don't all get along. Or be accomplishing big things. So it's important to know this about yourself and to know this about your team. And you can create a very simple, free Excel spreadsheet in a shared drive, within your organization, and you could have people list their name, their title, and their top 5 strengths. You could do this in Google Docs. And then when you're meeting with somebody, you can understand, well, what is it that's important to this person? What do they want to be acknowledged for? How do they want to be leveraged? It doesn't cost anything more than just buying the book for people, which is less than $20. There's a code in the back to take it. So this is a very simple kind of management, DIY management training thing that you could do. There are also Gallup certified strengths coaches that you could hire to do something like this. People who do not get to use their strengths at work burn out after 20 hours of work a week. After 20 hours of work a week, if I don't get to use my strengths at work, I burn out. I'm not sure if anyone saw this recently, but just last week, hot off the press, the World Health Organization has deemed burnout an official medical diagnosis. This came out last week of May. It's an official medical diagnosis. And it's characterized by things like prolonged exhaustion and energy depletion. It's characterized by negativity, cynicism, and isolation. People who are burned out are people who are checked out, oftentimes. And they may be a high performer, and you're like, gosh, why are you dropping the ball? Why are you slacking? I shared that story last year when I was up here, how I burned out 2 years ago, and I got mono, and I was doing all of those things. I was negative, and I was cynical, and I was isolated, and I was totally wiped out. I was dropping the ball on things with my job. So again, this is viewing people through a lens of compassion, that the people who are being difficult probably aren't doing it just to tick you off. They might be burned out. So if you're noticing any of those symptoms, negativity, cynicism, if you're noticing isolation, if you're noticing decreased energy and an impact on their performance, consider asking some questions about how they're doing instead of judging them. Approach them with curiosity. One of the ways that we can ensure that that's less likely to happen is by giving and receiving feedback on a more consistent basis with our people. We know, you've heard it 1,000 times, the days of the annual performance appraisal are over. Like when I can get immediate feedback on my phone every second, I'm not waiting a year. It's like, could you imagine, a friend of mine, Jason, uses this analogy. Could you imagine a friend that you have. Imagine on an annual basis, you get an annual friendship appraisal. Well, here's all the ways that you were really great this year, and here's all the ways where you just weren't a very good friend. You'd be like, screw you. Like nobody would do that, but that's what we're doing with employees when we're having an annual performance appraisal. I was like, remember that thing 9 months ago? Like, no, I don't remember that thing 9 months ago. I don't. How am I doing now? So people want more consistent and ongoing feedback. Feedback is important for a number of reasons. We're often scared to give it, but when you're screwing up and nobody says anything to you anymore, that means they've given up on you. You may not want to hear it, but your critics are often the ones telling you they still love you and care about you and want to make you better. Be open to receiving feedback. There's a phenomenal book on this topic called Thanks for the Feedback. If you're looking for ways to kind of incorporate this conversation more in the workplace, it's called Thanks for the Feedback. And it gives you kind of insights for how to give feedback and coaching and all that kind of stuff. The reason why this matters at a very fundamental human level is because next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival. To be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, and to be appreciated. This is what all of us want. This is what we're looking for, and we want the workplace to provide that for us. There's a tool that you can use. It's an engagement platform. It used to be called You Earned It. They rebranded as Kazoo HR. Does anybody currently use that in the room out of curiosity? Kazoo HR, really cool employee engagement and recognition platform that also has feedback tools in it. So they look to gamify it and to make it a really engaging process. I've worked with accounting firms that, like, when we think of warmth, I'm not going to stereotype CPAs, but I'm just saying when we think of like warmth, that's not often the profession that people would immediately name. And people skills, that is not immediately the profession people would name. But this accounting firm, they've got 500 employees, and they're like, this has been a game changer for our company. They're like, people love this thing. So it's called Kazoo HR. You'll get contact information in the follow-up email for someone to reach out to if you want to go through a demo or learn more about that tool. So here's your take-home reflection for this section. What does your organization do to give feedback regularly, train leaders, and promote learning and development? Take this question back to your team and have a conversation about it and see where the gaps are. What are we doing well? Another way of phrasing this question, you could say, what are we doing well in these areas? And what could we be doing better or differently? So what are we doing well? And what could we be doing better or differently? To take that back and have that conversation. The last thing that employees want from work is cause. They want to be proud of where they work. They want to be part of an organization that stands for something. Profits are essential. We know that. I'm not going to be up here who's like, people are the only thing that matters. Like, no, you got to make money like you're a business. But people want to be part of an organization that stands for something. So I want you to think about your company and why it exists. Like, aside from making money. I want you to just take a moment. I don't know if we can have a little background music or something, but if you guys could just take a minute or so and just jot down some thoughts about why does our company exist? What impact do we have on the wider world? What is the benefit of our product or our service to people? Just take a moment and just kind of jot down some thoughts that you have about your particular organization. Take this question back to your leadership team. Like, have a conversation with them and make sure that this is something your employees can identify. Most employees at most organizations don't necessarily know the impact that their organization has. And this is true at several levels. So we want to know what our impact is at all these levels. We want to know, like, what is the impact on the individual? Like, what is the impact, again, of our company and its products on the people that we serve, on our clients and customers? What is our impact on the community around us? Like, if your company were to disappear tomorrow, just vanish, would the community around you notice? Are you that invested and that connected in the community where you're based that people would notice if you vanished? It's a tough question to think about because most of us are so insular in our thinking. We're not focused on all the people around us necessarily. But if we want to be an organization that people stick around for years, then we have to focus on, like, why do we exist? What is the impact on the community, and what is our impact on the wider world? Like, why does the world need us? And I guarantee you that for some of you, maybe like, I don't really know. I'm kind of struggling with this one. Maybe it's to be a place where you provide people with income so that they can start families and so they can buy their first home or so they can send their kids to college. It might not even be the very nature of what your company does from a product standpoint. It might be the opportunity that you give 50 people or 400 people or 5,000 people to create a life that they want. That's a noble goal. That's an important reason to exist. And in human resources, I know a lot of times we can think about, like, what's my impact? Like, do you ever feel like a paper pusher sometimes? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm just doing like tactical stuff and I just want to do more strategic things, and I got into HR to work with humans, but I'm spending more of my time than not like dealing with paper and spreadsheets and things like that. So one of the benefits of human resources is that you have this very, very unique role of being people who are present for all of the major milestones that your employees go through. No one else has this opportunity. You are there when someone is potentially starting their first job. You might be interviewing someone for their very first job, and they're terrified of you. Like, but the very first time they're going to enter the working world, you could be that entry point for them. You're there when people get married. You're there when they buy a home. They have to interface with you when they have kids. You're there when someone's having a bad day and they come to your office in tears and you're like, I had 5,000 other things to do, but I will talk to you for an hour and a half. That's what HR is sometimes, right? You're like, oh, my day never goes the way I planned it. Like, don't even bother planning the day because it's probably not going to go the way you expected it to. And then maybe you have to deal with like Joe who made an idiot of himself at the holiday party. Ever had these people? You're like, could have stopped at like 3 drinks. Like, you're there for moments like this. You're there for moments of crisis. You're there when someone's going through a divorce. You're there when someone's retiring and leaving their career. And you're there for people when they lose a loved one. If I were to describe a person to you who has responsibility in all of these areas, would you say that what they do matters? Would you think they were important? You guys are all important. The nature of what you do is so critical because you are with people at every single one of these touch points and so many more. Anyone ever heard this? Your overhead, HR is overhead. Ever heard this before? Yes? So I'm going to challenge you on this because you are actually the primary driver and influencer of your company's talent acquisition, retention, and employee engagement strategy. Like, what you do matters. You are essential for your organization, and you're one of the people that can help tell the story and shape this idea of cause. So this is another question I want you to take back with you. This is related to cause. Do your employees feel relevant? Can they answer the question, who am I helping and why does it matter? Because if people are going through their day and they're just doing their job and they can't answer this question, they're eventually going to leave. Like, they're eventually going to leave because they want to feel like what they are doing is making a difference and having an impact. So can you think about this? How do you answer this question for yourself? Again, this is about, remember that anonymity thing too, is people want to feel like what they're doing matters. They want to feel like they're contributing to a greater cause or to something that's having an impact. So tell your stories. There's a vendor I'm going to introduce you guys to in the email again. It's called Skill Scout. It's based in Chicago, actually. And what they do is they do employee-generated video content. So they basically send you kits to make it look like you've been shooting video like professionally, but your employees are the ones telling your stories. They send you a kit for how to do this, all of kind of like the gear and the prompts and the questions to ask and all that kind of stuff. And they use these, they have organizations, Unilever, Deloitte, Nike, Holiday Inn, like all sorts of companies of all varying sizes, like much smaller companies as well. And they use these videos in their recruiting efforts. And they use these videos as virtual job descriptions to kind of follow somebody around for a day and to figure out what is it they do and how do we tell the story about what they do. So it's a really neat way to engage people in that cause idea. And we know that employee-generated content gets 8 times more engagement than something that's generated from like a brand channel or from your marketing department, marketing departments are awesome. Like, I work with them all the time. But one of the things to focus on is that employees want to hear messages from other employees. Does anyone currently work with Skill Scout since they're local? You do. You currently work with them. Would you, I'm not going to put you on the spot, is there anything that you think would be helpful for the group to know about your experience working with them? I have the mic up here.
Very easy.
Very easy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shoot a video, send to them, and they'll cut it.
And they cut it for you. What have you used it for, purpose-wise?
We use it for
A
a benefit video.
benefit video.
Testimonials about what the benefits.
So they
Posted on the website and messages.
So they took video of the employee benefits, like perks, and they got testimonials from people, and they posted it on Glassdoor and on their website. So really cool. So what's your name? Trisha. I'm not going to say like, hey, so 250 people come talk to Trisha, but she does know about this, and so if that's something you want to learn more about, again, I'll send you directly the contact information for Elena Valentine, who's the CEO. Oddly enough, I had to come all the way to Chicago to then go back to Baltimore to meet for her for lunch tomorrow, and she lives in Chicago. So I'm like, ship's passing in the night. But really, really cool company. Again, it's called Skill Scout, and it's a way that you can tell your story. Great cultures are rooted in great stories. Anybody here fly Southwest Airlines? Occasionally, yeah? Because of their cushy seats and amazing food and the screens on the back of the... No, like, it's because they sing to you. And they make you feel good, and they say, be kind to one another. They like pull an Ellen on the way off the flight. They're like, be kind to one another. Like, that's the kind of company I want to support. Because they care. They make me feel like they care about me. And so great cultures are rooted in great stories. Now I want you to think about, what are 3 words that you want to describe your culture? If you're looking back, let's say it's a year from now, and you applied for and you got recognized as a best place to work. And you're pulling together the 3 most common words your employees said about the experience they have working at your organization. What are 3 to 5 things that you'd want them to say? So I want you to write down those 3 to 5 words and then turn to your neighbor and share what you wrote down. And you don't have to use inside voices. You can like talk. To hear from a few folks. You can raise your hand if you can hear me. What are some words you guys said? You raise your hand, I'll call you out. What are some words you wrote down? Yeah. Agile. Very important for the future. Yeah, what else? Collaborative. Open. Respectful. Inclusive. Appreciative. Trustworthy. Accepting. Integrity. I want people to have integrity. Get over here. You're all just talking to each other. I know it wasn't about the weather, so. What other words? Coming from the rafters? Yeah. Engaged. Remember, your culture happens by design or by default. I would encourage you to take those words, write them in an index card, and put them at your computer. This is what we're going for. This is what we want to focus on. This is what we want to see more of in the future. To ask your leadership team these questions. What 3 to 5 words do you want our employees to use to describe the experience of working here? It might be very interesting to find out what they say. They may say things that you're like, wow, really? You actually want that? I want that too. And then you can focus your efforts and your strategy to align with their vision for what they want your culture to be in the future. So one last question I'll leave you with is, what is your organization doing to collect and tell stories about your impact? The impact you're having on your employees, the impact, this will be sent to you, the impact you're having on your clients and customers. Like, what is the impact that you are having? What is the impact? One final story I want to share with you about an organization that really gets this idea of impact. So as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I was flying from Denver, and my ear filled up, right, with fluid, and so I couldn't hear, and it was really kind of difficult because I was speaking, about a week later, I was speaking to a group of about 250 managers at a large accounting firm about human skills for future-ready leadership. Like, what are the things we need to do in the future besides tactical, competent things? Like, what are the human skills that we need in order to kind of like have an edge? So I knew I was going to get up to speak, and as a speaker, I have to be able to hear because you guys are saying things to me, and if I can't hear anything and it's muffled, like, that's a real struggle, to be honest, as a presenter. So I was kind of nervous because I was pretty blocked that day, and so I'm sitting out in the lobby, going through my slides. You know when you have those moments that you pretty much are wearing a sign that says, "Don't talk to me"? That's as much as I'm like, be friendly, I was like in game face mode. I was like, all right, I got like a half hour, like. So I literally, like, I'm sitting in the chair and I like lean back for a very ungraceful yawn. And this guy, Alex, walks up to me. He's like, "How are you doing today?" And I was like, I'm good. Like, just working on presenting next, I'm working on this thing. And he said, "How's your day going?" I was like, "It's good." Like, it's like, "Be nice, Rachel. Practice what you preach." And I was like, it's good. It's good. I'm just speaking about this thing with these accountants." And he said, can I get you anything? And I said, well, I told him about my ear issue. He's like, "Can I get you some ginger ale?" And I was like, I'm not sure how that's going to help my ear, but no, thank you. I'm fine. I said, you know, it would really be great is if I could have, like, I could really use some Sudafed, actually. And he's like, "Do you want me to get you some?" And I was like, like, really? He's like, "Yeah, like, I'll go get you some Sudafed. There's a 7-Eleven right around the corner." I was like, "Seriously?" So I like give him my money, and sure enough, he comes back 5 minutes later. He's like, "Here you go," with a box of Sudafed, hands it to me. And I was like, that was like really amazing customer service. And so he introduces me to his HR manager. So this company, by the way, is called the Heldrich Hotel. It's in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Anyone ever stayed there, Heldrich Hotel? Awesome, awesome, awesome place. Heldrich. So I said to Alex, "Can I talk to your manager? Because what you did was just really over the top." So he introduces me to him. So we're having a conversation. He said, "Alex is one of our best employees. So we have an initiative here called Be the Difference Moment. And so when our employees have a sense that they want to do something to be the difference, we give them the freedom to do that." Within 10 minutes, Alex comes back up to me. He was just so giddy, like he was so excited. This is my buddy Alex. And he comes up to me, he's like, "We already sent out an email to the whole company and everyone knows what happened." It's like, you are adorable. And so we connected over it, and then I decided, I was like, well, I like to spread good news, so I put a post up on LinkedIn, and probably a half a dozen people or so that he works with shared it, and they're like, "Alex is amazing, like he's the best." And now because of one kind act, because one person decided that he wanted to make a difference and have an impact, now thousands of people know about this company and the good work that they're doing and what they stand for and that they're committed to having an impact and making a difference. Do you think that if I'm in New Brunswick, New Jersey again, that I will stay at that hotel? Yes. Then Alex shared with me, he said, "I'm proposing to my girlfriend this summer." It's like, send me a picture. Because we're friends now. This is what can happen at an organization when we prioritize people, when we focus on building a community where there is a sense of connection and belonging and care and compassion. When we focus on growing and developing our people. When we're intentional not just about managing people, but about developing coaching and mentoring them. And we want to be organizations that have an impact and that stand for something more than just making money, that make the world a better place, that are companies that have be the difference moments. You have the opportunity to do that, to take these questions back to your organization, to be more intentional about seeing and hearing and valuing people. You have the opportunity to do that. Everyone in this room is a leader, and everyone in this room can intentionally design the culture that you want so that people will stick around and tell everyone about how great you are. That's the kind of company that all of us want to be. So thank you guys.